Andrew Williamson here. Welcome back to Williamson Education. If you've been speaking and writing in English for some time, you've probably come across a few challenges arising from pronoun usage, especially from pronouns that sound a lot like other words and phrases in the language. Take the words it's and its, for example. These two words differ by only an apostrophe, that little punctuation mark that looks like a floating comma. These words are called homophones, meaning that they sound exactly the same as each other but mean something different. In fact, despite their similarities, these two words do mean very different things. But the problem is this: new and old speakers of the English language often confuse these words. So with that confusion in mind, today's lecture is going to be structured a bit differently from most. I'm going to walk you through a series of commonly confused pronouns and explain how to use them correctly. By the end of the lesson, you'll be able to avoid a lot of the most frequent mistakes that speakers and writers make in their pronoun usage. Let's come back to those two homophones, its and its. What do these two words mean? In fact, although they seem quite similar, the two words could not be more different in meaning. The word its, it', is what is called a contraction, or a word that actually combines two words into one. In this case, the contraction combines the pronoun it with the verb is. In other words, the word it', stands for the clause it is. And that's how we use this contraction, as a short form of it is. For example, let's say you want to tell your friend about the weather today. It's sunny, or it's rainy, or it's hot. All of these sentences use the it', contraction. Or let's say that you want to tell your friend the time. It's 1 o'clock, or it's 11 o'clock, or it's midnight. You guessed it, all of these sentences use the it', contraction. In short, the its contraction can be used anywhere you could logically insert the clause it is into a sentence. Its sounds a little bit less formal and a little bit more conversational than it is, but the meaning is essentially the same. It's without an apostrophe, on the other hand, is the possessive adjective we have already studied in earlier lessons. This word serves to show ownership, as in, the giraffe raised its head to the sky to take a branch from the tree, or the car was broken, its engine had failed. I understand that the difference I'm describing could seem a bit counterintuitive. After all, maybe you know that apostrophes in English are often used to show ownership and possession. When it comes to its and its, however, the apostrophe is used for the word that is not a possessive. Here again, we have one of the quirky features of the English language. Next up, we have the pronouns your and your. You guessed it, another set of homophones. But now that we have studied its and its, the difference between your and your should be relatively easier to understand. In short, your with an apostrophe is a contraction of you are, while your without an apostrophe is a possessive adjective showing ownership. For example, consider the following correctly written sentences. You're going to need a rain jacket today since it's raining. Your brother is going to be home at 7 p.m. In the first case, we see that the word your serves to replace the words you are in a shorter and slightly less formal way. In the second case, the word your shows ownership of the brother by the person referred to in the second person. Of course, that ownership is not a literal legal ownership, but it is possession in the grammatical sense of the term. Let's move on to another set of pronouns that might cause trouble. There, and there. Did I just say the word there 3 times in a row? Sort of. Like its and its, these 3 words are homophones that all mean something quite different. Let's actually start with the word there, which should seem quite straightforward now that we have studied its. There is just the plural form of the its contraction. There stands for they are and can be used in any sentence in which they are could logically be used as well. For example, where are your friends? They're on the way. And likewise, the word there will also feel relatively intuitive at this point in our work. It is the plural version of the word its, no apostrophe, as in the cats licked their paws and the dogs wagged their tails. If you're trying to show ownership of something by a non-human entity, then there is your word. Finally, that brings us to there. There is most obviously used as a place word, indicating a location in space relatively far away from the speaker of the sentence. It forms a pair with the word here, which indicates a location in space relatively close to the speaker of the sentence. To use the word there, for example, you might say, the keys are over there, on the kitchen counter. Another common usage of the word there involves the construction there is and there are. In this usage, the word there indicates the existence of an object in a particular place. For instance, if your mom asks how many slices of pie are left, you might say, there are 5. Or if your dad asks you how many cars are in the driveway, you might respond, there is one. In clauses involving there is and there are, you use the noun that comes after the verb to decide whether to use the singular form there is or the plural form there are. Next up, we have another set of pronouns that can cause some difficulty from time to time, especially difficulty involving pronoun ambiguity. These pronouns are this, that, these, and those. In essence, these pronouns are used to identify and point to certain items that the speaker has before them. Which cup do you mean? This cup. Which shoes do you want to buy? Those shoes. The items may be relatively close to the speaker, indicated by the words this for singular and these for plural, or relatively far away, indicated by that for singular and those for plural. When we're dealing with actual physical objects, the risk of pronoun ambiguity is relatively low. But when these pronouns are used to indicate not items but ideas in sentences, some problems can arise. Often I find students using the pronoun this in their writing to indicate an earlier idea. Very frequently, the idea they are referring to is not clearly referred to. It can be helpful to consider two options in this case. Either place a noun after the pronoun this, or don't use the pronoun at all. Finally, we come to one last topic for the day, the pronouns that and which. Before we begin, I should say that you might notice some regional variations in the use of that and which. As an American, I tend to use these pronouns in one way, but I've noticed that my British colleagues from across the pond use them in another. Personally, I use the pronoun that to introduce what are called restrictive clauses, or clauses that are essential to the structure and meaning of a sentence. For example, consider the following sentence. The phone that I bought yesterday is already broken. In this sentence, the clause introduced by that is essential to the meaning I wish to express. Without it, we would be missing a crucial detail about the particular phone I am referring to. The sentence suggests that there may be multiple phones, the phone that I bought yesterday, the one that I bought last month, and the one that I bought last year, say. Crucially, restrictive clauses are not introduced with commas. By contrast, the pronoun which introduces what is called a non-restrictive or non-essential clause. It is introduced by a comma and adds a meaning to the sentence that the sentence could lose while still maintaining its basic structure. Consider the following sentence involving a non-restrictive clause using the pronoun which. I brought my clubs to the golf course, which had been well maintained over decades. Here, in this sentence, my non-restrictive clause at the end of the sentence serves to modify the noun that comes immediately before it, the golf course, and the basic meaning of the sentence would survive intact without the non-restrictive clause. All of this tells you that the pronoun which is the appropriate one to use. Again, there is some debate about the difference between that and which, and there are certain situations in which you could get away with using either one of these two pronouns. What I offer here is just my personal approach to the two pronouns, for what it's worth. Well, with that, we come to the end of today's lesson, which I hope very much that you have enjoyed. See you around for the next installment, and spread the word.